Welcome back to A Game of Two Halves, and this is part two of the most captivating transfers from the summer transfer window. I've analysed the first 10 Premier League clubs in part one, and if you haven't seen that, go and run to that now. I'll put the link in the description below because there's a spoiler coming up in the next few seconds. So pause the video, try and run back and watch that. I'll also put a link at the end of this video as well. But in this episode, I'll be analysing the remaining 10 Premier League clubs. As a quick reminder, here's the list of the first 10 Premier League clubs and the players that I chose. Like I said, put a comment in below if you agree or disagree with them. But let's jump on to the remaining 10 clubs and we'll go from there. And next up is Leicester and the signing of Facundo Buonanotte. And this is one where I want to see, can he contribute in the PL in terms of the output? You know, we can see he's a technician. It's a great signing for Leicester and Brighton. I think Brighton do this really well in terms of sending young players out on loan to a league that they think will help develop a certain characteristic. I think this one is one where they just want to see, can he do it in the Premier League? You know, Leicester are a footballing team, or they were a footballing team under Maresca. I think they'll carry on with him as the number 10. But we'll see, can he sort of develop that technician sort of side and actually add the goals and the sort of assists and chances created to his game. And he started well at Leicester already, so I think he will do well towards the end of the season. But I think just this year alone, regardless if he gets the goals or assists, will be a good development year for him to come back to Brighton and fight for his position. And next up, we have one of the big clubs fighting for the title this season. If you speak to the fans, I think they're happy with anything in the top four, but I think they would like to fight for the title. And that's the signing of Federico Chiesa at Liverpool. Mamardashvili was also signed, who I think is a ridiculously good signing, but he won't be playing this season because he was sent back on loan to Valencia. But Chiesa is one where we want to know, I think we all want to know, can he fulfill this potential? Can he stay injury-free? They're probably, again, the two questions that we would like to see answered this season. He probably won't be, have the stress of trying to play every week. I think that front three, or that sort of positions and the competition for those positions will be high at Liverpool. So I think that'll actually suit him. I don't think you want to rush him into playing 38, 40, 45 games in a season. But having that attacking output, how direct he is, you can see from the data, his sort of carries, progressive passes. He's so direct. He doesn't want to sort of slow the game down and keep it simple. He'll take on a man. He'll try and get in behind players. And he's got good quality technique in and around that box. So I think this will be a great signing, especially if they don't have to play him for a huge amount of minutes. And with Salah going next season, potentially, if they don't re-sign his contract, it could be one where they get sort of a bargain sort of replacement. Now, stay tuned to the end of the video to see my best or most interesting signing out of the 20 selected in this video. On to Man City and the signing of Ilkay Gundogan. And this is probably the most no-brainer transfer that any sort of club has done this summer. And have they finally found that sort of backup for Rodri? The amount of minutes he played last season, I think he even begged for a mini holiday and got it throughout the season. But Gundogan is probably the perfect sort of replacement as and when Rodri needs that rest. I don't think Gundogan is expecting to start every game, so that probably suits the squad sort of harmony and morale. He knows Pep's patterns, Pep's system. It's probably the most no-brainer. But have they finally found it? Can Gundogan even stay injury-free, at his age and the Premier League? Can he do it again? So I'm excited to see how he does in the Premier League again. Now, Manchester United, and I've chosen the signing of De Ligt. I know Ugarte was signed towards the end of the window, but I think De Ligt is one where that back line has needed a bit of an upgrade, and they brought Euro in, who got injured straight away. But I think De Ligt, if he can settle in, find his rhythm, he could be a good signing for the club. But the question you want to see answered this season is, can he finally settle at a big club? Being at Juventus, Bayern before, he hasn't quite pushed on how you probably expected it based on the initial hype from Ajax. Probably in that Maguire mould in terms of his build, probably a bit more athletic. So it's probably a long-term replacement for Maguire. And he probably has the technical ability to sort of replicate what Maguire does, if not better. But can he stay fit? Can he push on and show his potential? I think he's got to the age where he has to now. I don't think there's going to be another big club after this. So it's one where Man United are taking a slight gamble here. But I think it could work out. Next up is Newcastle, and they had a frustrating window, didn't sign too many players of note. But the sort of signing of William Masula is an interesting one as a development project. We've signed and sold Yakuba Minte to Brighton, and I think they're hoping for a similar thing here, where if he can develop under the likes of Callum Wilson, Isak, he has that similar sort of profile to Isak, which is interesting, with that sort of tall, lengthy sort of build, pacey, can run in behind, still quite strong, even though he's quite lean, and seemed to finish his goal well in the pre-season game that he played in. So if he could sort of learn from the likes of Isak, Wilson, come on towards the end of the game, have an impact, score the odd goal, get 5 goals this season, play in a cup competition potentially. I don't see this one as this year, but I think next year is when he could potentially kick on if he has the season that the scouting department probably envisage for him. So interesting signing, a good little development project, but will it work out? On to Nottingham Forest and the signing of Nikola Milinkovic. This is a great signing. I can't see this not working out, to be honest with you. Saw how he played at the Euros, especially in that England game. I've seen him previously at Fiorentina as well. But I think the question I would like to see is, can he help build that stable defensive line, that stable defensive record, and clean up those sort of aerial situations that Nottingham Forest seemed to struggle with last season, from set pieces, from free kicks, from crosses into the box. They seem to lack that aerial height and that dominant presence in the box. So this is one where I think he's got that in abundance. You can see from the data, aerial duels run, he's in the top percentiles. And I think he'll be a nice little match with Murillo, who I think is a great player as well. He's one that's more of a ball playing centre back, whereas I can cover a bit more in behind, whereas Milinkovic is probably going to come out more, try and win the aerial duel, try and take a bit more risk in terms of marking his man a bit tightly. So I think this could be a great little pairing for Nottingham Forest. And I think they will build on their sort of end of season last season. I think Nuno's a good manager, probably set them up on the counter. And I think this will be a good signing to help stabilise that back line a bit more in terms of crosses that come into the box and set pieces that they were losing last season. So yeah, interested to see if he can solve or help solve that issue along with the other signings. Next up is Southampton and the signing of Cameron Archer. And I think the most obvious question here is, similar to other sort of championship players that have come up, or players that haven't quite proven it in the Premier League, is can he do this for Southampton? Can he contribute the goals that they desperately need? Because you can even see from the early games that they create sort of nice patterns to move up to the final third, but they lack that clinical edge in terms of chance creation and putting away the chances. And you can see he is a good finisher, especially in the Championship he was. But when you're facing the top goalkeepers, the movement you need to beat the top defenders, can he finally do it? I'm unsure, but we'll see what he can do. Honourable mention to Sugawara. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but I saw him in the first game against Newcastle, and he's got really good technique, good going forward. So he nearly made it onto this list. But I think he'll have a good season as well for Southampton. Can still probably see the club getting relegated this season based on sort of the early form. But can Cameron Archer still get that sort of 8 goals, 10 goals to help Southampton sort of have a chance of staying up this year? Next up is Tottenham and the signing of Dominic Solanke. They signed a couple of interesting players, the young players in Archie Gray and Bergvall, who I could have jumped into, but I think the most obvious question that sort of everyone wants to see answered is, have Tottenham finally found that sort of Kane replacement? And I don't mean in terms of profile, I mean in terms of the goals and the output he got to help Tottenham sort of push for those sort of European places and later on to a title race when he was there. But they are different players. They can both link, but Kane can link better and drop in and create better. But Solanke can probably defend a bit better. You can see from the data sort of the amount of tackles he was winning in that middle third compared to Kane. I think Solanke can probably press better than Kane as well. So I think he suits Ange's style a bit better than Kane, although you never not want to have Kane in your team. I think it's interesting to sort of see, can he sort of replicate that sort of clinical touch he had last season, or was it a flash in the pan, one-off, one-season wonder? Can he get the same goals and be as clinical as he needs to be at a top club? On to the last couple now, and we'll start with West Ham and the signing of Todibo. Now, he was only brought in on loan, which is probably a bit of a sort of warning sign to West Ham as to if he does well, what will happen. But can they build that new centre-back pairing? I think this is one that's haunted West Ham last season with the likes of Zuma and Aguerd. Didn't quite do it together injury prone, defensive lapses there as well. But when you add Todibo and Kilman in that centre-back pairing and Wan-Bissaka on that right side as well, I think this could be quite an exciting season for West Ham if they're able to gel and mesh them together. But Todibo is one that comes with a lot of pedigree. You hear his name linked here, there, and everywhere before this season, and he's finally moved to the Premier League. So it'll be exciting to see what his sort of characteristics are. The speculation around him, will he move at the end of the season if he has a good season? I think there's a lot of unanswered questions there that I'm excited to see how it pans out this season. And last up is Wolves and the signing of Jørgen Strand Larsen. Now, the most obvious question here is, can he be that striker and that physical profile that they've missed since Raul Jimenez? They had the 5th worst goals scored in the league last season, which, for the end result that they had and the kind of football they were playing, you could see why they tried to go out and sign another striker. Hwang did well last season. Cunha did well last season, but they lacked that clinical touch and that consistency over a whole season. And you can see from Larsen's data, he had 13 goals last season for Celta Vigo. He scored 14 goals in the Eredivisie a couple of seasons before that. And it's time that he probably now shows this in the Premier League. Probably might need sort of that year to adapt. You can see he had that year to adapt to sort of Celta Vigo. Only scored 4 goals in his first season and then kicked on to 13 goals. I think they need a bit more of that immediate impact now. And I think he can provide it, but it's one where it's interesting to see how he fits into O'Neill's system and can he sort of provide that clinical touch in and around the box for them this season. So here they are, all 20 players, one for each Premier League club that I think will be the most interesting signing for them this season. But as promised, I said I'll pick one for sort of my most interesting signing of the summer, and it has to be for me, Ferdi Kadioglu at Brighton. So congratulations to him. I don't know what prize he wins, but he's won the Game of Two Halves prize for most interesting signing of the season. Positionally, he's flexible, can play left back, right footed as well, and looks so comfortable at that left back, cutting in, taking on players, carrying the ball into space, good passer, nice and crisp, sharp connections on the ball. And it's one where I can't, I wouldn't be surprised to see the big clubs circling around him as of the next summer transfer window after this season at Brighton. It's interesting to see how he adapts to the Premier League, but I think he's got that sort of physical profile to adapt to the pace and tenacity of the Premier League. So it'll be great to see how he does at Brighton this season. Now here's the full list of the 20 most interesting signings of the summer transfer window, one for each Premier League club, plus my earlier pick for the signing or the most interesting signing of the summer transfer window. I'll be hopefully doing a review at the end of the season to see how well these questions were answered. But let me know in the comments below, who is your most interesting pick for your Premier League club or for any Premier League club, and we'll debate in the comments below. Thanks for tuning in to A Game of Two Halves, and I'll catch you for the next episode.